Shmuel Aleph. Wow. So please God, we will finish Shmuel Aleph today, but in true tradition to our Jewish traditions, we will not be making a siyum because it is really insignificant, right?
What is insignificant?
Shmuel Aleph, the distinction between Shmuel Aleph and Shmuel Beis is a Christian invention. In Jewish sources, it is the Book of Shmuel. There's no Shmuel Aleph and Shmuel Beis.
Why do they split up then?
I can't answer the question because the Christian printers control the printing presses in the 1600s, and since then it's just become part of something that's very difficult to change.
But Shmuel passed away.
Who?
Shmuel passed away.
Shmuel, right?
Yeah.
Therefore,
Shmuel passed away. Shmuel Aleph.
Yeah, Shmuel Aleph passed
so,
away.
yeah, well, see why it says Chazaki is a bit problematic because Chazak implies it's really ended. So
Does Shmuel make an appearance in Shmuel Beis?
No. Well, he made a hello, and it appears at the end of this book in his spirit.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so we didn't actually get to the end of chapter 30 yet. Let's finish that first. So what happened is as follows. I don't have another copies.
It's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, David, the army of Shaul is facing the army of the Philistines up north in the Jezreel Valley. David had managed to get out of having to fight against the Jews, even though he was sort of part of the Philistine army, and has come back to Ziklag, which is where his family, his two wives, and his men's wives and children should have been, but they weren't there. The town had been ransacked, burnt down to the ground by an attack of Amalekites while they were away. So David went, and the women and children being taken off as hostages, as slaves. David, with his men, managed to chase after the Amalekites and bring back their women and children back, and lots of booty. It wasn't just their own stuff. It was these Amalekites had attacked many, many other towns and villages, Philistine towns and Jewish towns. So they had this enormous load of sheep and cattle and gold and silver, and that the Amalekites had taken off them, and now they were marching back with it. When they came to the river of Besor, they met the men who had been too tired to come with them, and there was a bit of a unpleasant situation where some of the men didn't want to share their booty with these other men, and David told them the contrary. These people deserve it just as much as you, and okay, that's what we got up to. All right, so what we're up to, Pasuk Chafeh, page 89, Pasuk Chafeh, chapter 30, Pasuk 25. Vayehi, and it was, Mei Hayoim, we did that already, Pasuk Chafeh. Vayavoy David, and David came back to Ziklag, which is his town, which had been burnt down. I suppose they started to rebuild it or whatever. Vayishalach, and he sent, Vayishalach, and he said, Meha Shalal, from the booty, from the spoil. Another word for it?
Spoils.
Right? And what did he do? Now, technically it was his, because the owners who had it been taken from had certainly given up hope of ever getting it back. That's what we call it in Hebrew, in Gemara terms, Yiyush. And therefore, once the owner's been Aish, then the one who finds it can keep it. And technically, David had the right to keep it, but he didn't need it, and he gave it away. So what did he do? Yishalach, and he sent Meha Shalal from the booty, Lezikne to Yehuda, to the elders of Yehuda, Lere'ehu, to his comrades, those who he knew, and Yehuda, who he had a relationship with. David had been an outlaw, running from one place to another around the deserts of Yehuda, and now he wanted to show his appreciation to all those people who had helped him in the past. Also, he wanted to return the goods to the people who had been taken from. So he didn't know exactly what had been taken from who, right? But he sort of re-sorted it out. So he gave it to Lere'ehu, to his friends, Lamar, saying, this is the message, Hine, behold, lachem, to you, Baracha, a blessing. And this is a present from me. Mishalal, from the booty of Vei Hashem, of the enemies of God. So these are Amalekites, the enemies of God, and I'm giving you their booty which I've taken from them. La Asher Beveisel, to those who lived in Beisel. Asher b'Ramos Negev, and to those who lived in Ramos in the Negev, as opposed to some Ramos somewhere else. I live in Ramos, what we call Ramot, but it's not in the Negev. So that you would say Washington D.C. to differentiate it from Washington somewhere else. Washington
State.
No, I didn't mean that. You say Washington D.C. as opposed to Washington in some other state.
Yeah.
Right? Oregon, whatever. Right? So the same thing. There's a Ramos in the Negev as opposed to Ramos which is somewhere else. Velasher Yatir, and to the people in Yatir. There's a long list here, all the towns and villages that he sent stuff to. Velasher Ba'aroer, those who lived in Aroer. Velasher Besifmot. Velasher Be'eshtemoa. Velasher Berochel. Velasher Ba'arei HaYirachme'eli, those who lived in the cities of Yerachme'el. Velasher Ba'arei HaKeni, those who lived in the Canaanite cities. Velasher B'charma. Velasher Bar Oshan, those who lived in a town called Bar Oshan, which literally means the pit of smoke. Velasher Ba'asach. Velasher B'Chevron, that's the only city we're familiar, those who lived in Chevron, which is also in Yehuda.
Lesher literally means to live.
No.
Live in.
Velasher, and to those of. Like Asher, and to those of. It means those who live in this town. And that's just a list of 13 different towns that he sent his booty to, and to other places as well, which I suppose too small to warrant mention. Ulachal HaMakom, and to all the places, Asher Hishalech Shom David, that David had gone around, Hu V'Anashav in his men. Means all the places they had frequented in their days that they'd been in the desert, they sent them thank you, Pri.
So it's not just that Amalek or the however you want to define them took it from these places. He's just giving it to people that he wants to give thanks to.
I think so.
Okay.
I suppose it's somehow related to he didn't go to everybody. I don't know. But yes, primarily the ones he wants to with, because it was his. Okay, that's ending chapter 30. Now we get a very, very tricky chapter 31. It's very tricky because it's halachically and philosophically very difficult to deal with. Upelishtim and the Philistines, Nilchamim, were warring, were fighting, were battling. The Yisrael against the Israelites. As a war, we're going back to the war now, which is up north in the Jezreel Valley, between around Afula, the area of Beit Shan, Afula, that area. And Vayanusu, and Yisrael, the men of Israel, fled. So the Philistines are getting the upper hand. Mipnei Pelishtim, in face of the Philistines. Vayiplu Chalalim, and they fell as slain. Chalal is a corpse. That's what it means, right? I don't think they just dropped dead. I think it means they were stabbed or wounded or had their heads chopped off, right? So when they fled, the Philistines chased after them, and they fell as corpses. Chalal is a corpse. In my opinion, it's related to the word chalal, which means empty space. It means a body without life. You can have a space without air. It's called a chalal, right? So a body without life is called a chalal. Or soil without life is called a chol. It's called sand, right? Anyway, or a weekday, a day without spirituality is called chol. These are all those which I think are related. Anyway, halal means a corpse. Behara Gilboa and Mount Gilboa. Mount Gilboa is just south of the Jezreel Valley. If you go up the Jordan Valley, you go up north, and you keep going till you get to what's called Emek HaMayanot, this valley of the springs. On the left side there you will see Mount Gilboa. Vayadbeku Philishtim es Shaul, and the Philistines caught up with Shaul. Now the word Yadbeku is from the word Devek. Devek means, what do you say? To glue, right? Devek is glue. So when someone sticks to you, it means the Philistines saw Shaul and they were chasing after him. They didn't literally stuck to him, but they were on his tail. The Ethbonov and his sons. So Shaul was fighting there in this battle with his sons. And Yaku, Philistine, and the Philistines struck. Struck means hit, which it's clear from the story that they killed. No, wouldn't necessarily mean that. Es Yehona's son. Yehona's son is David's best friend, right? Es Avi Nadav. That's his second son of Shaul. Avi Nadav. No, that was Shaul's cousin called Daphne. There's Malki Shua, that's a third son. So Shaul's 3 sons have now been killed in battle. Bnei Shaul, the sons of Shaul. Tichbad hamilchama el Shaul. And the battle became tichbad, from the word kaved. Kaved means heavy. Became more difficult. So Shaul, it seems, had survived the attack on his sons, but it was becoming more intense, the attack. It was becoming more and more difficult for Shaul. And vayimtza'uhu hamorim anashim bakeshes, and the men who shoot with arrows, with bows,
Archers.
right? What we call archers. They found Shaul. Means he was on the crosshairs. If they had him. Vayimtza'u hamorim anashim. I'm not sure why you need the word anashim. I don't know why the word anashim adds anything. Anashim means people. Obviously, they're not shooting arrows at rabbits, right? Obviously, we're talking about armies. They're shooting at people. Why do you have to? And it's not saying they're people. Obviously, they're people. I don't know what the word does. It doesn't add anything to the sentence. Vayimtzu hamorim anashim bakeshes. What were they shooting with? Keshes is a bow, right? Like the rainbow. It's called a keshet. Same thing as shaped like a bow. Okay, so they're shooting bows and arrows, and they had found Shaul. Now Yochad Shaul understood that. You can see the arrows right in his direction. Obviously, they knew they were shooting and who they were shooting at, and they had it. Yochel ma'oid, and he was very scared, like with chil, terrified. Mehamorim, from the archers. The word moreh also means teacher.
Boga.
Why is that? Because teachers kill too? No, it's because teachers shoot instructions. That's why. That's what a moreh is. Who shoots instructions. Right. So it really means an instructor. A moreh gives instructions. And Shaul said to his armor bearer. So his armor bearer is still there. An armor bearer is someone who walks in front of someone who's very important and carries his shield, a big shield or something like that, or carries like the guy in the caddy, what's it called?
Golf.
Yeah.
In the golf, where he carries your clubs, right? So there's a guy who carries your armor and he carries it. And he said to him, Shilof harbacha, draw your sword, v'dakreni ba, and pierce me with it.
What?
That's what it means.
Suicide by armor bearer.
He wanted his armor bearer to kill him. Let's find out why for a start. Pen, lest. Very good. That means before the following happens. That's what pen means. Yavo ha'arelim ha'ela. These uncircumcised ones will come, referring to the Philistines. What will they do? Udekaruni, and they will pierce me. Well, that itself obviously isn't enough of a reason, because if the question is whether the Philistines will kill you or your armor bearers, it's better let some goy kill you and let the Philistines kill you. But, he adds on, if they would just do that, then I wouldn't suggest that you should kill me. But what they're going to do as well, the his alalubi, and they will, well, yes, something like that. Right? The word doesn't literally mean to torture, but that's probably what it's referring to. His alalubi means play with me, toy with me, tease me, torture me, make a mock of me, right? And if it would have just been that, if he was only worried about that, he probably also wanted his armor bearer to do it. Because, okay, so you'll suffer, you'll torture, it'll be painful, terrible, awful, right? But you'll live at the end. Only because he was convinced that they would do both. Meaning that they would first torture him, and then they would make fun of him and display him from town to town in the Philistine towns and make him whatever. We don't know exactly what they would have done or what he imagines, but something would have been in his mind, tremendous chilul Hashem.
So why is it
Because the Philistines, who at one point had been very impressed with the ark. Remember the Philistines, at the beginning of the Book of Shmuel, they had the ark and they went from town to town and said, wow, look at this God, how can we do anything about this? And there was plague, and it made a big impression on them. And now they had to hear somebody who claimed, or was well known, or was the anointed one of God, of prophet of Shmuel, and they had him here and they made fun of him. It would have been a big chilul Hashem. And then in the end they would kill him. And therefore Shaul reckoned that with having taken these two things into consideration, at least these two things, maybe other things to consider as well, but at least these two consideration justified telling his armor bearer to kill him. Now, before we carry on, I want you to know that many years ago I gave this class and went into detail to explain how we can come to terms with Shaul trying to commit suicide. Okay, like how does Jewish tradition, the Medrash, Halacha view this attempt of suicide in Shaul? Is that acceptable? Is he still seen as a tzaddik? Most people who commit suicide are considered Rishonim, to the extent that in the literal halacha, a guy who commits suicide isn't buried.
Really?
No, we just don't. It's his problem. It's not our problem to deal with guys who commit suicide. It means there'll be somebody who'll take care of him. The Goyish authorities will take care of him. Right? That's the literal halacha. We don't practice that nowadays. I think the reason is because generally we presume that people who commit suicide are not responsible for their actions. That means no normal sane person commits suicide. And the guy who does is very, very rare. And we assume that they were under tremendous psychological pressure, which makes them not responsible for their actions. That's the usual way out of this, the literal. But literally, that's what it says in Allah. You certainly don't eulogize a person who commits suicide and is considered terrible, awful, terrible crap. Okay? And yet, we view Shaul as a tzaddik. To the extent that later on we'll see in the Navi, because he wasn't eulogized properly, as you would expect to be done for a tzaddik, there was a 3-year famine in the country of Israel. Later on, at the end of the Book of Shmuel base, right? So,
I thought that was because of the census.
okay, that's what you thought. Okay, fine. That was a different story. That was not a famine. That was the plague.
Oh, plague.
Plague was because
plague.
it's two different stories. They're both at the end of they're both at the end of Shmuel base, but they're two different stories. Okay, but that is problematic. There's a serious issue here. How do we deal? My grandson's called Shaul, right? And when David criticizes Shaul, Chazal say, you criticize my big tzaddik. Shaul is seen by our tradition as being a big tzaddik, and yet he commits suicide. How do you deal with this? So I gave a class on this class, right? About 2 o'clock in the night, I've told you this before, 2 o'clock in the night, my wife's nephew called me to say that one of the guys in my class had committed suicide. Must have been about 10 years ago this happened. He jumped off the Moshav roof.
The
Right.
Moshav roof?
The Moshav roof, can't remember his name. He was in this class, right? So obviously I felt awful, right?
So now you don't give that class.
Well, I have to give the class because it's part of Shmuel Aleph. It's the last period. We have to talk about it. We can't skip this chapter out, right? I just always preface it with this story that even after we justify and explain and understand what Shaul was doing, right? It's not meant to say, well, okay, if I feel bad about myself, I'm not taking my meds or whatever, I should just jump off the roof. Look, the truth is that when we discussed it afterwards, at the time we discussed it, like I asked the other guys in the class, did I give the impression it's okay to commit suicide? Well, the whole point of the class was to explain how Jewish tradition and halacha views suicide as murder, and then we have to understand what are the circumstances that explain why Shaul was doing it. So the psychologist who came to yeshiva to interview us and explain to us says it's very, very unlikely that talking about it would lead someone to do it. On the contrary, it's usually people commit suicide when they're not able to talk about it and not give a possibility of expression of their feelings. And the mice that the Bocher the guy in yeshiva had not taken it, was on medication which he hadn't taken, and that was probably what
Did he
it
seem
was.
off?
What?
Did he seem off during the class?
Did he do what?
Did he seem off?
No. Not that I remember. I don't remember. There was no signs to me. I mean, no one had warned me or anything about it.
That's crazy.
Maybe that would be a better idea. Anyway, so that's the introduction to this class. So Shaul, first of all, gives 2 points, which explain. There's other things you have to take into consideration. Is the fact that he knew he was going to die. Shmuel had told him, tomorrow you're going to die in battle. Right? So he knew that.
Yeah.
it was just a matter of now stretching it out, right? He also felt that he had this terrible avera of murdering the town of Kohanim, which needed atoning for. And again, that doesn't mean you can commit suicide to atone for averas, but it is a consideration. It's part of what's going through Shaul's mind, is that what's happening to he deserved.
When he was going to be captured, that would have been a big atonement.
Yes, but the problem of that is the other consideration. He lets himself be captured and is then tortured, and it's a tremendous mockery of God and His prophecy. Others suggest that under torture he may have given away information that would put many other people at risk, which is a thing that soldiers have to seriously consider, whether so some soldiers have, right, cyanide pills, that sort of thing. Is that okay? So a lot of the halachic discussion about this sort of thing is based on what the commentaries say about Shaul, whether Shaul was allowed to do what he did, he's not allowed to do what he did. But one of the considerations is that even when these things are permitted, right, is there a difference between doing it to yourself or getting somebody else to do it? Now, if a goy is going to kill us, for sure that's the normal thing. When Jews give up their life for doing things, then somebody's going to kill them. But killing yourself is then like worse. And what, getting another Jew to kill you, is that worse or better?
I think it's worse
You think it's worse than suicide,
yourself.
right? So that could be the consideration of why the armor bearer, although we haven't seen that yet, the armor bearer refuses to go along with this. It's one thing you want to commit suicide, that's your problem, right? But that's bad as it is. But getting me as a Jew to murder is worse than suicide. Even though suicide is almost, the Rambam says, you know what the punishment for suicide is? It's funny. What? The Rambam says, you chayav misa b'dei shamayim. Which is, you chayav misa b'dei, you get no. Misa b'dei shamayim means God will kill you. That's what it says. You don't have to believe me. Look inside. The Rambam says that the punishment for committing suicide is misa b'dei shamayim, which is weird, of course, because you're dead. It's too late, right?
Yeah, destroys your soul.
No, not destroy. It doesn't say you saw yourself. Misa b'dei shamayim means God will kill you. That's me. If you're talking about kares or something else, kares is for other things, because like for eating chametz and Pesach or nida, that's okay, right? But misa b'dei shamayim just means that God will kill you. But this guy's already dead. So I don't really know what to make of that statement, unless it means a guy tries to commit suicide. A guy jumped off the building, right? And just happened to be, there was a big cushion down there, and he didn't notice it. So he's transgressed the sin of committing suicide, just wasn't successful. So maybe that's what Rambam means. I don't know. I really don't know. But anyway, I'm saying it's not first degree murder, which is liable to the death sentence, which is what you get for murder. So it could be slightly better. That's maybe part of the consideration why Shaul didn't want to kill himself, right? Sorry, why the armor bearer won't kill him and Shaul's going to have to do it to himself. Yes?
Maybe, though, because Shaul was a prophet, he knew that the consequences for him not killing himself were going to be worse, right? But we, who are not prophets,
Correct.
if we were to go to war and have the choice of suicide or be tortured, we always have to say to be tortured, because unfortunately we're not prophets, so we don't have the authority to make that decision.
Correct. So that's why I said, although he wasn't himself a prophet, but he had received prophecy from
Yeah.
Shmuel knowing he was going to die. But that's true, but I think if you had to make a decision about divulging information,
Yeah,
right,
we're not
which would
prophets.
putting other people's lives at risk. You can't say, "Oh, well, I'm not a prophet, so I don't know." But now I have. It depends how close to it is. If at a point that becomes too late, then you're putting other people's lives at risk. So maybe that's the question: Can you kill someone to save yourself? The answer is no. Can you kill yourself to save yourself killing somebody else?
No.
Can you kill someone to save yourself?
Kill yourself from.
Can you kill yourself to save yourself from killing somebody else?
Technically,
You can't think of the circumstance. You don't have to think of the circumstance. Theoretically.
Technically, yes. Theoretically, yes.
Why?
Because you're not allowed to. Because it's one of the three cardinal sins, murder.
Yeah, but killing yourself is also murder.
But
So
Yeah, but-
you're getting yourself murdered isn't murdered. It's very close to it. But actually killing yourself, maybe just as bad as killing somebody else.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And again, I should never have to face these questions. I don't know exactly what the answer is.
How you kill yourself as well? Like,
Why is it make a difference? Anyway, it's definitely something. It could be the only consideration with a number of people. I mean, to kill yourself to save 10 people being killed, that might be a consideration.
maybe you could chop off his tongue off instead. Like,
No, but I'm not talking about that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
To stop
you're
you-
correct. But that's not the question over here. The question here over here is the only way to stop yourself divulging information to kill yourself. Otherwise, they're going to torture you, and you're going to give this information. You know that. There's no question they're going to get this information from you. You have this hydrogen cyanide pill you can eat, right? And that would be murdering yourself, right? Was that better than the other people dying? Maybe it depends on how many there are. Maybe other circumstances, and other considerations, right? So that might be part of Charles. You don't think so?
At the end of the day, you need to trust Hashem. Like, even if you think that, like, it's a very high, like 99% chance you're going to give away the information if you don't kill yourself. At the end of the day, it's only 99% chance. Hashem is going to do some stuff if you don't kill yourself. It's better just to keep the Torah, not kill yourself.
No, you can't say keep the Torah because the other side, either way you transgressing the Torah.
No, but one is directly transgressing the Torah. The other one is just a probability that you're going to transgress the Torah. And so I think you need to just play the odds. And so it's better to just take the likelihood of transgressing the Torah rather than...
I tell you what, I hear what your consideration, but I tell you the problem with that is you're putting your other people's lives at risk based on your faith. It's one thing, your own life. But you've got, let's say it's not 10 people, it's 100,000 people. You understand? You give away information of where this bomb is, and this guy's going to kill all these innocent people because you would say, well, I trust in God, it'll all be okay. That's very nice.
Yeah, but if Hashem wants them to live, then he's going to make them live. If Hashem wants them to die...
No, he wants you to die to save them. That's it. Otherwise, every soldier can say, why should I bother fighting? Well, Hashem wants these people to live. They'll live. Why should I
maybe you
crack
should go join the Yeshiva instead or go to the army. Exactly.
Anyway, this is not so straightforward, and you get the point. This is all part of Shaul's considerations here on Mount Gilboa. What should he do? So this is Shaul's decision that the best thing in this circumstance is to commit suicide. So originally he asked his armor bearer to do this. What did he do? V'loi ava noisei kelav. His armor bearer would not agree. Ki yarei ma'oi, because he was very scared. Now, he's scared of what? He was scared because he was scared of blood. He was scared to kill Shaul because Shaul was the king, because he was anointed. He was scared because it's an Aveira. Doesn't say what he was scared of. It could be. I don't know. It doesn't say. He's scared. I think he was just squeamish. He was an armor bearer. He'd seen blood and gore, and he knew what war was about. What's scared, right? But he was scared of the consequences, maybe because he was the king. Even if the king tells you to kill him, it's maybe not such a good idea.
Also,
right?
if the king dies, surely he's gonna die as well.
What?
The king dies, the war is like finished.
You mean? Yeah, but no. You mean? It's like if you
Number one,
kill a king in chess, maybe it's the end of the game.
He's Chayav Misa. Also, the war would be over, and Plishtim would just kill him.
Okay, so we're trying to say, what does Yori mean? Does Yori mean you say it means both? He was scared of both. Okay, fine, whatever. You mean what you may take you want, right? He's probably scared of all these things. I don't know. Vayikach Shaul es acharev. Shaul took the sword. Whose sword? I suppose the armor bearer's sword. Vayipoil aleha, and he fell upon it.
Whoa. So he committed.
So he committed suicide. The armor bearer wouldn't do it. Shaul committed suicide. Vayar noisei kelav, and the armor bearer saw. Ki meis Shaul, the Shaul had died. Vayipol gam hu al charboi, and he also fell on his sword. Vayamas imoi, and he died with him. So it looks like the armor bearer wasn't so frum about committing suicide. Or it was that it could have been like I was saying, you want to commit suicide, that's fine. But me killing you, that's murder. And that's worse. So you can kill yourself, I'll kill myself. But when I should kill you, that's worse.
Yeah, but
that's why he wouldn't do that.
When he kills himself, it's also murder.
No. We started off, the assumption was that suicide is not as bad as murder. The Rambam says, what's the punishment for suicide? Chayav Nisim B'nei Shamayim. So the Rambam's told me it's not as bad as murder. It's almost as bad, right? But murder, you don't get Nisim B'nei Shamayim. Murder, you get killed by Basin. Murder is much worse, killing somebody else. Obviously, killing yourself is very, very bad, right? You can't do it under any circumstance. But it's worse to kill somebody else. So they killed, what about Masada?
They also killed.
First of all, you assume they really happened. Right?
Assuming
It happened. No, so what?
they 900
For sure.
killed themselves.
What?
900 people also killed themselves.
No, so what?
So
What's your question?
there's no
It's
question.
just a story.
Rabbi, but surely Shaul knows more halacha and is more from Yid than his armor bearer. So the fact that Shaul is first.
Absolutely, very good question. I don't know, but I know there is a bit of halachic debate about this. In a circumstances where you have a heter to kill somebody, for example, this is also debated. During the times of the Crusades, now's a good time to talk about it because this is the time of the year where we commemorate the Crusades during the Shiur. There were circumstances where parents felt that they should kill their own children because they were being attacked by the Crusades, and they knew that if they didn't, their children would be brought up as Christians. So there's a lot of debate, some debate, but it was the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do. But I know a part of the debate is even those who say it's only okay to commit suicide, but not to kill somebody else. And others say it's not true. Just like it's okay to commit suicide because it's one of the 3 cardinal sins. You see, again, a cardinal sin means, let's say you know you're going to be brought up as a Christian. So you would say, no, who says? You never know for sure. Okay, there is such a view brought out there. You never know. You never know what's going to be. But let's assume that you're allowed to. It's very clear what's happening, and so the normal situation is the goy kills you, right? I'd rather die than be forced to accept your religion. That's the normal circumstance. The next question is, okay, so that you're supposed to do, that's not called murder. Even though it's telling you, please kill me, that's called suicide, right? It's a form of murder, but you're still supposed to give up your life in order not to do that. What happens? Can I commit suicide to prevent that? Or I'm only allowed if the goy is going to kill me. Well, suicide's the same, right? So that's a thing which is discussed at length in halacha. Again, you're allowed, or not only you're allowed, supposed to let the goy kill you to avoid you transgressing one of the 3 cardinal sins. But is it okay also to commit suicide to prevent yourself doing one of the 3 cardinal sins? Or is that not acceptable? Right? So they usually use the Gemara as a proof for this. The Gemara talks about 400 boys and girls who were on a boat, the Gemara in Gittin, and they were being taken, and they realized they were being taken to be involved in sex trade, and they all jumped off the boat and died, committed suicide. So that's generally brought as the precedent to prove that it's acceptable to, maybe not commanded to not only is it commendable to have yourself killed rather than transgress the 3 cardinal sins, it's also acceptable to commit suicide rather than do that. That's the Gemara that's usually quoted, right? Now the next question is, okay, so you're allowed to have yourself killed, you're allowed to commit suicide, but can you kill somebody else to do that? Means if you can see that the other person, right, is going to for sure transgress one of these 3 sins, for sure, right? So can you kill him? Means you can have yourself killed, you can kill yourself. What about killing him? So that's a big debate in the Shulchan Aruch about this last point. So that could have been the point of debate between Shaul and his armor bearer. Shaul says no difference. Once you're allowed to die for this, and you're allowed to commit suicide for this, and you're allowed to kill for this as well. It's all basically 3 slight nuanced differences of the same thing. Get it? So, and Al may have held that other opinion. No, you're allowed to die and you're allowed to commit suicide, you're not allowed to murder, even though it's almost the same thing. Top. So he fell on his sword, Vayamas Imai, and he died with him. Vayamas Shaul Ushloishes Banav, and Shaul and his 3 sons, this is the summary. V'noisei Caleb and his armor bearer all died. Gam Kol Anoshav, also all his men. I don't think it means the whole army. It means all his ministers, all the highest ranking officers of the army were all killed in this battle. Vayomahu, on that day, Yachdav, together. Vayiru Anshe Yisrael, and the men of Israel. This is talking about the people who lived in the area, the people who lived in the villages and towns in the area around the battle. Asher be'ever ha'emek, who are on the other side of the valley. Ever means the other side. The valley means the Hara Gilboa is one side, Emek Yisrael is in the middle, and the mountains on the other side are the mountains of Afula. Those mountains, or mountains or whatever, those are where the people live. Those people saw and those who are on the other side of the Jordan. That's towards the east. Ki Nasu Anshe Yisrael, the men of Israel had fled. It means those who of the battle would fled. V'chi meisu Shaul Abanav, and that Shaul and his sons died. V'ya'azvu es ha'arim, and they left the cities. They fled. They knew they were next. The Philistines, after winning the battle, would then come and attack them. So they ran to safety. And say where they ran to? Vayanusu, and Vayazvu, they left the cities behind. Vayanusu, and they fled. Vayavahu Philistim, and the Philistines came. Vayeshu Bahem, and settled in them. So now this part of Israel, the northern part of Israel, it's a long way from where the Philistines live, was now empty of Jews. Philistines took it over. Vayimi Macharos, it was on the next day. Shaul's body and his sons and their officers are all dead, lying, slain on the battlefield. Vayavo Philistim, the Philistines came. I suppose the original happened towards dark, and so they waited till the next day before they come. Lefashet et hachalalim, to strip the slain. To strip them of their uniforms, of their weapons, of their jewelry, whatever else they can take from them. Yimtzu es Shaul, and they found Shaul. So they didn't know till then. Maybe they knew that he was dead, but they didn't find him. Shloishes Bonov and his 3 sons, Neiflim, who had fallen, Bahar HaGilboa and Mount Gilboa. Yichrisu es Roishoi, and they, what did they do?
Struck.
What did they do? Cut off his head, right? They severed Shaul's head. He was dead, of course, right? Yavshitu es Caleb, and they stripped him of his armor. Caleb literally means his utensils. It means his armor. Yeshalchu be'eretz Pelishtim, and they sent it to the land of the Philistines. Saviv, all around, means it went on a tour of the different cities of the Philistines. They can all see Shaul's head and Shaul's armor.
What was that word?
Like Goliath.
Right, exactly. By Yafshitu, they stripped.
Yeah,
By
right.
Yeshalchu, and they sent Pelishtim. Saviv, around.
Right.
Like a Savivon, goes around. It means it went around the circuit from town to town. Levaser, to report, to give the news. Bet Atzabehem. Okay, that's their houses of worship. Atzabehem means their gods. Say that, they're idols. So that's where it was on display. Come to the local church and you'll see Shaul's head and his armor. Right. The Esa'am, and the people, means that the people would come and see it in their places of worship, would see these things on display. Vayasimu gives examples, and they placed Escalav, his utensils, base Ashtaroth, in the house of Ashtaroth. That's the name of some god. The Esgiviyato, and his body. Now, the body they didn't take to the Philistines. The severed head and his armor they put on display in the Philistine towns, but his body, that's Giviyah, the rest of his body, right? Tak'u, they planted. That's not the right word. Tak'u is like, come on, a plug. Is a teka. Something you fix, that's the word. To fix into the wall. Bechomat, into the wall of Bet Shan, Beit Shan. Means Beit Shan was a city, as it is today, and the outer wall of the city, they took Shaul's body and they nailed it to the wall. And displayed it there. His head was separate in the Philistines, and his body was on the wall. Beit Shan is usually spelled Shin Aleph Nun. That's how you spell it today, and it's usually spelled in Tanach like that as well. What happened to the Aleph, I don't know. I'm sure it's hinting to something. I have no idea. The word Shan without an Aleph usually means a tooth, as a Shein, Sheinaim. But I've no idea why the Aleph got taken out. Don't know. Vayishmeu Elav Yoshvei Yavesh Gilad. And the inhabitants of Yavesh Gilad, which is really the town's called Yavesh, but it's in Gilad to distinguish it from Yavesh somewhere else, right? Gilad, right? Okay? Yavesh in the area, Gilad is the area, yeah? Gilad is the area on the eastern side of the Jordan, which today is in the country called Jordan. It belonged to the tribe of Gad. And it's probably, my guess is that it's named after Yaakov and Lavan's, what's the word? Not memorial.
Like a monument.
Monument, that's the word I'm looking for. Right? Yaakov and Lavan made a monument called Gal Eid, which was a big pile of stones, which was to warn each one to mind their own business and not to attack. So that's what's gal. It means a heap. Aid means a testimony. It's a heap which was a testimony to each other. My assumption, which was in that area, that Gilad is just the same word with different vowels, right? So, but it could be named after someone called Gilad. I don't know. Okay, that was the area, and what's in there is this town called Yavesh, and the inhabitants heard about this. They heard this shocking news. Not the shocking news about the loss of the battle, everyone knew about that, but Shaul's body, right, but the king's body was on display on the walls of Beit Shan, and this was something they had to do something about. You might remember that the inhabitants of Yavesh Gilad had a specific debt of gratitude to Shaul. The inhabitants of Yavesh Gilad were attacked by the king, war. Right, the first war, right, that was the king, what was his name? Nachash, the king of Ammon, and he threatened if they to war, and he would allow them to surrender on condition that he would then gouge out each one's right eye.
Yeah.
Otherwise they'd go to war and they would lose, right? If they surrendered, these were the conditions of surrender. And they said, okay, give us a week and we'll see if we can get help.
Sure.
Because Nachash didn't want to fight them either, right? He wanted them to surrender. And they sent a message to Shaul. This was, he'd just been newly appointed king. It was a bit of a shaky, his monarchy at the time. And Shaul got the whole army ready, and they attacked suddenly, and they managed to free the people of Yavesh Gilad from this siege of Nachash. So the people of Yavesh Gilad really were very grateful to Shaul. I mean, he was everyone's king, but that why they specifically, of all the people who were worked up about this, is probably for that reason. What did they do? And what did they do? They heard. Yishmu Elav, not sure what that means, they heard about it. Who the inhabitants of Yavesh Gilad says, Asu Philistine Shaul, what the Philistines had done to Shaul. Mayakumu, so they got up. Kol Ish Chayil, every man of valor, means anyone who was brave, right? Doesn't necessarily mean a Chayal, right? Chayal means a soldier, right? Chayil means, obviously the word's related, right? A guy who was brave, right, and felt that something had to be done here, and this was a disgrace to the monarchy, to the king, and to the benefactor. They got up, Vayelchu Kolalai, they went the whole night, means they marched this whole group of people, Vayikchu, and they took as Givia Shaul, the bodies of Shaul, but as Givia is Bonov, and the bodies of his sons. So it's clear that it wasn't just Shaul who was on display, it was also the bodies of Yonasan and...
Why does it say bodies, plural?
Why does it? Because there were 3 bodies, or 4 bodies.
Bodies of Shaul.
And his son.
No, and his sons. Givia Shaul, the body of Shaul, that is Giviyot, and the bodies of Bonov, his sons, which were all nailed to the walls of Beit Shan, Mechomat Beit Shan, Vayavohu, and they came, Yavesha, to Yavesh, the Helium means 2, they came back with the bodies to Yavesh. Now this is a difficult one. Vayisrafu Oisam, and they burnt them, Sham, there in Yavesh. That's what it says. Well, it says they burnt them. Let's read that passage. I can't leave in the middle of this. He's going to think they cremated them. God forbid. Right? That doesn't mean that. Because you see, it says, they took their bones, and they buried them. It doesn't say them, but it means them. They buried them. Tachas, underneath Ha'eshel, which is a big tree.
Mm-hmm.
Like Avram Avinu had an eshel where people used to come and sit under the tree, and they would. Right, that's where he had his guests. It was called an eshel. So there's a tree there in Yavesh, and under that tree, the bones of Shaul and his sons are buried. So they didn't cremate them. So what did they burn? So some say
the flesh.
I don't know. Some say they burnt their clothes.
They already stripped them.
No, they were naked.
How do you know?
But it could have been. It's just unlikely. There's no. When the Philistines were stripping them, wasn't trying to leave them naked. That wasn't the point. The point was to take them off their armor.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be. Others say there's a thing called. It's actually a concept mentioned in Halacha about burning the things of a king after he dies. His private things we burn because nobody else is going to use them.
Oh, like the horses that cut off their clothes.
No one's allowed to use the king's horse or the king's scepter or the king's stuff. So therefore it's a sign of respect for the king that all his things are burnt. The problem is, it doesn't say that. It says, Vayisrafu Oisam. They burnt them. It doesn't say
Yeah.
that
And
which was
it's-
upon
they
them.
took their bones.
Oh,
not their
so that's
bodies.
implying, correct, that,
They
They
burned the
burnt the
flesh
flesh.
off.
right, they burn the flesh. And why would they do that? What's the point? Why don't you just bury them? You know, if you're going to cremate someone, you do it all the way.
They gave them tattoos. Just guessing.
Who gave who tattoos? The Philistines put them on tattoos. And why would that be a reason to burn their flesh?
I'm just guessing.
No. They say that they'd been there long enough for the bodies to start to decompose.
So-
And it was disrespectful at the royal funerary. Everyone would bury Shaul holding them, right?
He's wrapped.
What?
He's wrapped up in a tallis and
Hey,
That would be still smell. It'd be awful. You know, I was at a funeral once, and it was like on the second day of Yom Tov,
Ooh.
right? So it was already like the body was already a few days old, and if it's in the middle of summer, it's not kept in refrigeration. It's problematic, which is the reason why we actually bury on the second day of Yom Tov. Don't wait till Motzei Yom Tov, because it'd be even more disgusting. So that's what some suggest, that it was already. By the time they got there, they took the bodies to the Beit Shan. It doesn't say how long it was. By the time the Philistines took the bodies to the Beit Shan, by the time the people in Yavish heard about it, they managed. It was already, maybe in the middle of summer, it was already, not nice to bury them like that, and therefore they. But it's interesting you're allowed to do such a thing. Okay? They took their bones and they buried it under the tree. Vayotsumu, and then they fasted. Itzom is the fast. Shivas Yomim, for a week. That was, I suppose, a sign of mourning for king and his son's deaths. And that's the end of Shmuel.
Rabbi
Chazak.
Yavesha. To Yavesh.
Oh, right.
To Yavesh.
No.
Right. Okay, but I don't know how the Chazak. Even though it's a Christian idea that's in the second book, practically speaking, Jews have been doing this for hundreds of years, writing it into two books. Not thousands of years, since printing was done, and therefore it's to finish the Book of Shmuel HaNavi. It's not really significant, but
Even Art Scroll still has two.
right. So it's definitely a great accomplishment. And then we move. The reason why it split into a different book is now the end of the life of Shaul. Shaul's not dead. It's not a nice place to end. We don't usually end on a sad place like that.
No,
But-
Avengers Infinity War ended with the Thanos snapping the fingers and he destroyed half the universe. Do you know that Avengers?
It does end up chapter of the story. That's the chapter itself.
Yeah. It ended on a really sad ending, just like this.
Like half the people die, and that's how the movie ends.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the universe.
Don't spoil
Yeah,
it.
Universe, wasn't
I
it?
didn't watch it
About
yet.
the Martians.
Yeah, everybody.
No,
Yeah.
no. It's just got every
It's called the Avengers.
Yeah,
It's
the
a film.
Avengers. Yeah.
About it tomorrow.
When I was a kid, there was a thing called Avengers, but it wasn't that.
Well,
It's the same thing. It's Stan Lee.
well, I think about now
It's
they
like
have
Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk.
I'm sure Stanley's is Jewish.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, was.
Was
Bruce Lee. Yeah, I remember Bruce Lee.
Stan Lee is the part of it. Yeah, it was.